Hari Om, happy Ganesh Chaturthi to everyone. Let's get started with invocation prayers.
सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। गीता ध्यानम्। ओम पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्धधामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणी। नमोऽस्तु ते व्यासविशालबुद्धे पुल्लारविन्दायतपत्रनेत्रा येन त्वया भारततैल्यपूर्णः प्रज्वालितो ज्ञानमयप्रदीपः प्रपन्नपारिजाताय स्तोत्रवैत्रेकपाणये ज्ञानमुद्राय कृष्णाय गीतामृतदुहे नमः। सर्वोपनिषदो गावो भूता गोपालनन्दनः पार्थो वत्सः सुधीर्भोक्ता दुग्धं गीतामृतं महत्। वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुम्। भीष्मद्रोणतटा जयद्रथजला गान्धारनीलोत्पला शल्यग्राहवती कृपेण वहनी कर्णेन वेलाकुला। अश्वत्थामविकर्णघोरमकरा दुर्योधनावर्तिनी सोत्तीर्णा खलु पाण्डवैरननडी कैवर्तककेशवा। पाराशर्यवचः सरोजममलं गीतार्थगन्धोत्कटम् नानाख्यानककेसरं हरिकथा सम्बोधनाबोधितम्। लोके सज्जनषट्परैरहरः पेपीयमानं मुदा भूयाद्भारतपङ्कजं कलिमलप्रध्वंसिन श्रेयसे। मूकं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे परमानन्दमाधवम् यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्ररुद्रमरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदे गायन्ति यं सामगाः ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनो यस्यान्तं न विदुःसुरासुरगणा देवाय तस्मै नमः देवाय तस्मै नमः देवाय तस्मै नमः
Hari Om. Happy Ganesh Chaturthi again to all of us, to everyone. Actually, there is a very interesting story about how Lord Ganesha has one tusk. I don't know how many of you would have heard that. Very, very interesting story. As we all know, Sri Vedavyasa is the composer of the Mahabharata, of which the Bhagavad Gita is a part. And when he got ready to write his composition, that time he was looking for someone who could transcribe it. And he was advised by the gods that the best person to transcribe Mahabharata would be Lord Ganesha. So Vedavyasa approached Lord Ganesha, and in his usual wont of, pulling somebody's leg and generally childlike behavior that Lord Ganesha is known for, he said, yes, of course I'll do it, but I have a condition. And the condition is that you will not stop as you are reciting the Mahabharata, and you'll do it continuously without pause. And I will write it down as you recite. And if you pause, then I'll run away. I'll go away and I'll take whatever I've written with me. I'll not give it back to you. So that was the prank or the childish challenge that Lord Ganesha played. And Sri Vedavyasa wanted to be up to the challenge, so he accepted it. But then he was worried, that what would happen if indeed Lord Ganesha can transcribe extremely fast, really fast. And what would happen if he is faster and Vedavyasa, I slip up in reciting, and then Ganesha would actually run away, with the scriptures. So he then said, I have a reverse condition, which is, if at times you don't understand what I'm saying, you will write only once you understand the import of what I'm trying to say. And Lord Ganesha accepted that condition. And, once in a while, Sri Vedavyasa, as the text became very technical, deep, then there would be times when Lord Ganesha would pause a little bit, giving Sri Vedavyasa the breather that he needed. And as he was writing, as he was approaching the middle of the Mahabharata, actually as he got to Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Lord Ganesha's pen that he used, that broke, feathered pen that he was using to write the Mahabharata, it broke. And now Lord Ganesha was in a spot, because Sri Vedavyasa was going to continue, he's not going to stop for Lord Ganesha. That was the condition. So immediately, without wasting any moment, he broke his tusk and used the tusk as a pen for the remaining part of the Mahabharata. And that is the story of Lord Ganesha having a single tusk. So happy Ganesh Chaturthi to everyone. Very auspicious festival for all of us. So Lord Krishna, continuing with his emphasis on how Arjuna and why Arjuna should perform Karma Yoga, Bhagavan says, O Partha, look at me. See how I am. There is nothing in the three worlds, that is the Trishu Lokeshu, that where there is something to be done by me. And there is nothing that needs to be attained by me. Anavaptam is, there is nothing that is unattained by me. There is nothing in this world that I don't have. Anavaptam. And there is nothing that needs to be attained by me. Avaptavyam. Yet I engage in action ceaselessly, non-stop, atandrita, without any tandra, continuously, without getting tired, without pausing, without being lazy. And if I did not do this in my avatar form, Lord Krishna was there as Vasudeva, the avatar, Krishna, the avatar. If I didn't do it in this avatar form, the human beings would follow me. Follow me is anuvartante. And when they follow me, the result would be confusion of roles. Because if I don't play my role, others also would not play the roles that they are meant to play. And that would cause confusion of roles, sankarasya. And if I don't perform my duties as Bhagavan, as the creator, as the Lord, then Brahma and all other elements of creation will start following me. And when they start following me, and at that level confusion and roles start existing, then it would lead to destruction. Destruction is upahanyam and perishment of whatever creation is there. Utsi. And then Bhagavan brings up the concept of saktaha and asakta. Sakta is a person who is attached, asakta is a person who is unattached. And he says how this person who is unattached should conduct herself in the presence of a person who is attached, sakta. And how should that be done? Without generating any unsettlement, no buddhi bedam in the mind intellect of the people who are attached to their actions, karma sanginam. The people who are karma sanginam don't create any buddhi bedam in their minds. Be balanced, yuktaha in their presence, and engage with energy, with josh, joshayat, in all actions, sarva karmani. And not only that, set an ideal, perform all actions with dedication and excellence, samachara. And Bhagavan says that while whatever is being done is by the qualities arising out of one's nature, which is prakriti, the deluded people who are the vimudhatman, they think that, and they do their work, their actions, thinking that I am the doer. In reality, what is happening through the natural qualities of creation. He also introduces the concept of guna karma. Guna is the nature and the instruments which are used for performing action, which enable action. And karma are the actions that get performed using the gunas. And he distinguishes guna karma and uses the term vibhagayo, which means what is not guna karma. And what is implied by that is, what is not guna karma? It is the pure consciousness that is not guna karma. And he says that the person who knows the difference between guna karma and what is not guna karma, that is guna karma and pure consciousness, is a tattvavit, knower of the truth. So how then should a person who is not a tattvavit, who is not yet ready to attain the knowledge, who is not yet attained the knowledge, how is that person to make progress? Bhagavan says, by renouncing all actions in me. He brings in the concept of bhakti, which will be in the next verse. We'll go to verse 30.
Mai sarvani karmani
Mai sarvani karmani
sanyasyadhyatma chetasa
sanyasyadhyatma chetasa
nirashir nirmamo bhutva
nirashir nirmamo bhutva
yudhyasva vigatajvaraha
yudhyasva vigatajvaraha
Mai sarvani karmani sanyasyadhyatma chetasa nirashir nirmamo bhutva yudhyasva vigatajvaraha.
Adhyatma chetasa, the last word in the first line. With a centered mind, with a focused mind. Focused on what? Mai, in me, in Bhagavan. The Lord but for whom nothing is there, but for whom nothing can work. Focused in me, Bhagavan says himself. And in this situation, that Lord who is the avatar, Vasudeva. Vasudeva means Vasu is the earth or the creation, the universe, and Deva is the Lord of the universe, the Lord of the world. In that Lord, focused in that Lord, with the mind focused in that Lord. And what? Sanyasya sarvani karmani. Sanyasya, we have sufficiently discussed this word. Sannyasa is renouncing, giving up something lower to attain something higher. Sannyasya, what? Sarvani karmani. All the actions renounce to the focus on the Lord. And when you do that, what happens? When we do that, we give up the thought, the notion that I am doing. That notion is given up when you do Sanyasya Sarvani Karmani. And in this manner, he tells Arjuna here, Yuddhasva, do your duty, Arjuna. For Arjuna, the duty is fighting. For all of us, whatever battles we are fighting, whatever our duties are. And if you do that, Bhutva, you will become Nirashir Nirmamo. Nirashihi, Nir Ashihi. Nir is free. Ashihi is selfishness, free from selfishness. And what is the selfishness? I want. And Nirmamo, Nirmamo, free from ego, mama, the sense of I. So the I, remember, I plus I want, aham and mama. In the first satsang we talked about it. Aham and mama leads to delusion. That was Arjuna's problem, shoka and moha. So free from the sense of I, which is nirmama, and free from the sense of the selfishness, which is I want. That is nirashihi. And vigata jwaraha. When you are free, you give up the jwara is fever. Vigata is giving up. Give up the fever that is there in the mind. This fever of I and mine, this fever of I and mine, aham and mama, give up that fever. And when you give up that fever, what are you doing? You are renouncing your actions in the Lord. So two terms that Bhagavan used in a different manner here. Adhyatma Chetasa and Nirashi Nirmamo. Adhyatma Chetasa is mind centered on God, which is what we have seen this earlier. Ishvara Arpana Buddhi. Ishvara Arpana Buddhi is mind centered on God, focused on God, which is nothing but Adhyatma Chetasa. Submission. And Nirashi Nirmamo is that sense of freedom from I and I want, freedom from aham and mama. And when you are free from the concept of I and mine, the ego and the selfishness, then there is prasada buddhi, equanimity. You are not doing it for yourself. When you are not doing it for yourself, there is equanimity. You receive it as a prasada. Prasada has two meanings. One is the prasada or the benevolence that is received, and the other meaning is equanimity, stable-minded. So when work is done without these two aspects, without the Adhyatma Chetasa and without Nirashi Nirmamo, when work is done without that, when there is no submission or devotion to the higher ideal, and like I've said earlier, the higher ideal is the Lord represented in various ways where we say, Roger Federer, that tournament is the higher ideal. The game of tennis is the higher ideal. And Bhagavan will represent himself or herself in that form of that game. So when there is no devotion to the higher ideal, when we are not doing for the higher ideal, submitting to the higher ideal, and when we are receiving the results without equanimity, complaining with an attitude of, I don't want this, who asked for this, then it results in mental disturbance. This I wanted it, I didn't get it, or I got it, I didn't want it, is nothing but mental disturbance. That is termed as jwara, the fever. And thus, Bhagavan shows the path of bhakti to one who is not a tattvavit. To everyone, at whatever stage in the spiritual path that a human being is in, Bhagavan shows that bhakti is sacrosanct. So for here, he shows for a person who is ignorant, who is not a knower, who is not a tattvavit. Later on, he'll talk about the concept of sattvika shraddha. That is for the person who is perfect, who is highly accomplished. So one day, a man had a conversation with God and he said, "Dear God, I would like to know what heaven and hell look like." So Bhagavan took the man to a place, there are two doors, and he opened one of the doors and made him look inside. And the man peeped inside and saw that there was a large round table, people sitting around that table. There was a huge bowl of some food, some kind of a stew, nice smoke emanating out of it, smelling delicious. And it was almost like the man wanted to taste it. But when he saw the people around it, all of them were skinny, bony, thin, sickly, miserable, just sitting there. And he noticed that in their arms was tied long spoons, which they were supposed to use to eat. But they were long spoons, because of which they could reach these two, but they could not bring it to their mouth. And the man looked at it and he said, "Oh my God," he shuddered. He shuddered at this kind of suffering, at this kind of misery. Because there is everything there in front of you, but you cannot feed yourself. And then Bhagavan said, "Now that you have seen hell, let me show you heaven." He opened the other door. The other door, the man peeped in and saw again a round, large table with people seated around it. Exactly the same bowl, the stew, the smell, the beautiful aroma of lovely food, the spoons tied to their hands. But all these people seated around the table were, laughing, eating, praying, happy, healthy, looking good. And this man was like perplexed. He said, "I just don't get it, God. What's going on here? I just do not get it." Bhagavan said, "It's too simple. Don't worry about it. It's really, really simple. What you saw in the previous room was a group of selfish people who were thinking only about themselves. What you see in this room are a group of people who are devoting whatever they do to something higher ideal, which is me. When you devote anything you do to something higher, that is me. That something higher is me. And they are feeding each other. Of course, their spoons cannot reach their mouth, but they are using the same spoon to feed the other person. So this selfishness, this dwelling into this I plus I want, leads to the sickly, sad, despondent nature of human beings. Bhagavan now elucidates the result of following the path that he has prescribed, the teaching, his teaching, my teaching, and the result of not following it. In the next two verses, we will go through both of them together.
Ye me matamidam nityam.
Ye me matamitam nityam.
Anutishtanti manavaha.
Anutishtanti manavaha.
Shraddhavanto nasuyantaha.
Shraddhavanto nasuyantaha.
Muchyante tepi karmabhihi.
Muchyante tepi karmabhihi.
Ye tve tadabhyasuyantaha.
Ye tve tadabhyasuyantaha.
Nanutishtanti me matam.
Nanutishtanti me matam.
Sarvajnana vimudham stan.
Sarvajnana vimudham stan.
Viddhi nashtana chetasaha.
Viddhi nashtana chetasaha.
Ye me matamidam nityam. Anutishtanti manavaha. Shraddhavanto nasuyantaha. मुच्यन्ते तेऽपि कर्मभिः ये त्वे तदभ्यसूयन्तः नानुतिष्ठन्ति मे मतम् सर्वज्ञानविमूढांस्तान् विद्धि नष्टान चेतसः.
Me matam, my teaching, which is what I just referred to. So he says, ye manavaha, those human beings who anutishtanti, follow. Anutishtanti is followership, follow. Idam me matam, idam matam me, in that order. This teaching of mine, my teaching. What teaching? Mai sanyasya sarvani karmani. Renouncing all actions in me, that teaching. Doing your work with the Ishvara Arpana Buddhi and Prasada Buddhi, which is what teaching? Karma Yoga teaching. So, performing Karma Yoga, that teaching. Nityam, that has been eternally found and practiced. And how do you follow this teaching, this Karma Yoga? Shraddhavanto nasuyanto. Shraddhavantaha, full of faith. Nasuyantaha, without any cavilling, without any complaining, without finding fault. I don't know how many of you saw that video Deepak sent yesterday, the flowers. Mrs. Murthy talking about it, right? The first flower, Nasuyanta. That's the first flower that is referred to in that shloka. Nasuyanto. Please do not complain. So Shraddha, we have seen Shraddha earlier also, if you remember, when I talked about Javed Akhtar and that concept of logic, reason, rationale, evidence, witness, right? So I was flabbergasted when I heard him say devoid. Anything that is devoid of all of this is Shraddha. And I was like, no, anything that is inherently present, is where all of this is inherently present, that is faith. So Shraddha, faith, is the possibility to see something which you cannot see in real terms. What you cannot see in real terms, but you see it. That vision, that is Shraddha. It's the power of the mind that brings Shraddha. So Sri Ramakrishna said, Shraddha is a state of mind conducive to all-round development. Ardently applying oneself is Shraddha. To any undertaking is Shraddha. To be accommodative to others is Shraddha. Placing faith on fellow human beings is Shraddha. These are all characteristics of Shraddha, as per Sri Ramakrishna. And what is Asuya? Asuya is, in Sanskrit, Gunesha Dosha Darshanam, which means finding fault. Oh, this won't work. It doesn't make sense. This is not for me. Oh no. Why is this happening? Who asked for this? That is Asuya. And if Asuya is present, then Shraddha will not be there. So Bhagavan says that people who are full of faith, without cavilling, without complaining, te api, they also muchyante karma bihi, are freed, are liberated from actions. They also. Why is he saying that? Because earlier he has said that the Tattvavita is freed from actions. The knower, the person who has that knowledge, he is freed from action. Now he is saying that these people also who devote their actions to me, who have the Shraddha, Shraddhavanto Nasuyanto, they also are freed from actions. And continuing, he says, Ye tveda bhya suyanta. Tve tada. We have seen this earlier. Tu. TWE is tu. 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 That is but. Again, one more time. But as compared to the previous person. However, as compared to the person who is having Shraddha and who is Nasuya, as compared to that person, whether we learn anything else or not, these two concepts we should learn, as compared to the previously referred to, whatever previously was referred to, as compared to that. Ye Abhyasuyanto, those who complain and keep finding fault. Abhyasuyanto is complaining or finding fault. Nanu tishtanti me matam, and do not practice. Nanu tishtanti, do not practice. Me matam, my teaching. Vidhi, please know, please understand, O Arjuna. Tan nashtan achatesha, they are lost, unknowing. Vimudhan sarvagyana, they are lost, unknowing and deluded. Sarvagyana, in all knowledge, in all of knowledge. So sarvagyana, all of knowledge, means the knowledge including its source, which is the pramana, the prameya and the prayojana. We had talked about this again in the initial satsang. Pramana is the means of knowing. Prameya is the subject of knowing, and prayojana is the result of knowing. The knowledge along with the pramana, prameya, prayojana, the means, the subject and the result, are deluded or taken away, and this person is lost to all of that. Just like, for example, when I was going through this, the example that came to my mind was, take an Intel processor, Intel chip. You know, I used to be in the chip design industry. The Intel chip, it's there. It's a processor. It's there inside this box. But without the software that runs through it, that processor is just a piece of dead ASIC. ASIC is application specific and integrated circuit. That's what the processor is without the software. Useless. Similarly, without Shraddhavantaha and Asuyantaha, Nasuyantaha, this person is useless and is lost. He's useless because he is lost. So that faith, that deep belief, that ability to see something which is not visible, that ability to see something which is intellectually not able to be seen or captured, that is Shraddha. And that is the power of the mind. So my son, when he was about 6 years old, we went out shopping. As we came out of the store, it was pouring. Absolute heavy, the skies were coming down. That kind of rain where the water is in so much of a hurry that it doesn't go into the drains. It flows above it, right? And even if it goes quickly, it all overflows. Puddles all around, you know, water kind of stagnating in various places. And a number of people stood under the awning outside the shop, waiting for this rain to abate so that they could go about their work. Some of them just watching the rain, most of them complaining. Abhya Suyantaha, complaining. Most people were complaining. It was a real story, right? Why complaining? Because suddenly this nature is interrupting their daily life. They had plans. They had to go back, get breakfast, and then do something else. You know, then do something else, then do something else. They had so much of work lined up, and suddenly there is an interruption. A busy, hurried day put to a standstill. So everybody was standing there, and suddenly his voice broke through this trance. Everyone was in a trance, you know, either watching the rain, possibly one out of the 40, 50 there happy, the rest of them complaining. And suddenly young boy's, you know, voice breaks through the trance that everyone was in. He said, "Daddy, let's run home in the rain." And I was like, no, we'll get soaked. Let's wait. You know, within about 10, 15 minutes, the shower will come down. Let's wait. But Daddy, Dadima is grandmother. Dadima says, she only says that God gets us through everything. God will get us through this rain also. Let's go. Let's run. And I was looking at him in amazement. Split second, I took the decision. Both of us were running into the rain. There were a couple of things in my hand that was bought in the grocery shop that would have got spoiled, but that didn't occur at that moment. And we were yelling and screaming and ran into the rain. And as we danced back, I was kind of looking back, and I saw that more than half the people actually followed us, liberated, happy. This little 6-year-old boy, some faith, you know, let's go. And quote unquote, God will take us through it. So a cat's claws and teeth are benevolent to its kitten. When a cat, like a father and son here, the cat and the kitten, when it's grabbing its offspring by the teeth and by its claws, it is lightly holding it and carrying it from one place to the other, the newborn kitten. But come to a rat, it is not benevolent, it's malevolent. Similarly, the power of the Lord, it is beneficial for the people who are proactive. Proactive means what? Proactive is nothing but the quality of optimism, the quality of faith, the quality of belief, the quality of Shraddha, the quality of submission to something that is higher, something that your goal is towards, something that is God. And it is harmful to the complainers. So then the question comes that if following this teaching is the way to get liberated, then why is this not proclaimed as an order, imposed on everyone, made a rule, a commandment to be followed? Bhagavan gives the answer to that in the next verse.
Tadrisham cheshtati swasyaha
Sadrisham cheshtate swasyaha
prakrite jnanavanapi
prakrite jnanavanapi
prakritim yanti bhutani
prakritim yanti bhutani
nigraha kim karishyati
nigraha kim karishyati
sadrisham cheshtate swasyaha prakrite jnanavanapi prakritim yanti bhutani nigraha kim karishyati.
api jnanavan cheshtate sadrisham swasya prakrite. Api jnanavan cheshtate, even a wise person, api even jnanavan, a wise person, cheshtate, acts, performs action. Sadrisham swasyaha prakrite, in accordance with his or her own nature. Even the wise perform actions in accordance with their nature. This nature or swabhava, as we talked about last satsang, it is not accidental. We don't have it in an accidental manner. Our nature is born out of our inherent tendencies from our genetic code and the tendencies that go into the genetic code. And then as we go through, as we travel through this passage called life, various experiences, our inclinations, disinclinations, all these elements shape our nature. This swabhava is extremely balavan, it is strong, it is difficult to change. In fact, there was a time when you could change a person up to the age of 18, 19, 20. Now by around 9, 10 years, their nature is pretty much set in concrete. It's very, very difficult to change. So Bhagavan says that even a person who is knowledgeable, who knows the difference between right and wrong, who is the Tattvavita, that person also acts according to his nature. I know this is not right. I know this is not appropriate. I know this is not correct. I know this is not good. But somehow I do it. I know that I'm speaking to my mother in a very improper manner, but I continue. I know that I'm dressed inappropriately, but I still wear that and continue. I know that I'm overspeeding, but I still continue. I know that I'm taking a selfie on the edge of a cliff, which is extremely dangerous, but I still continue. My nature. Yet I do it. So Bhagavan says, these beings, bhutani, these beings, yanti prakritim, they follow their nature. Yanti follow prakritim, their nature. Kim nigraha karishyati, what restraint can be had, what rules can be ordained, what supervision can be made, what can we do? Because the people are anyway following their nature. So no commandments can be prescribed, 1 or 10. Organized religion prescribes commandments, not Bhagavan. Nigraha kim karishyati, This is what Bhagavan says. This is not a statement of despair. We should be very careful not to take it in the wrong way. It doesn't mean that you cannot do anything. It's not to tell us that there is no transformation possible. It is not to tell us that change cannot be made. It is not to tell us that you cannot improve. You are doomed to who you are, what you are, how you are. Not for that. It just implies that effort, self-effort is required to bring about any change or transformation. Mastering the mind, it involves diving into our, what did I talk about just now? The inclinations and the disinclinations. We have to dive deep into these inclinations and the disinclinations of the mind. These two together, the inclinations and the disinclinations, what are they? The likes and the dislikes. They together form our nature, the Swabhava. Our nature expresses itself through the likes and the dislikes, the Raga and the Dvesha. So we have to dive into these. We have to understand this. A man complained to Sri Ramakrishna that whatever he did, his mind could not turn Godward. He said, Gurudev Sri Krishna, I'm Ramakrishna, whatever I do, my mind does not go towards this higher ideal, towards God. Then Sri Ramakrishna asked him, what is it that you love most? And the man said, my pet. He didn't pondered a little bit maybe, but he said, my pet dog is my most loved thing that I have. So Sri Ramakrishna said, let's see your pet dog. The man brought the pet dog in front of him, a small puppy. Ramakrishna looked at it and said, oh my God, beautiful, looks so divine. And after that, every time the man looked at his most loved pet, he thought, you look so divine. And over a period of time, his mind turned towards divinity, towards God. So you need to work. Some key is required. Something that is required. The first step in spiritual progress is to discover our inclinations and disinclinations, our likes and dislikes, and then make self-effort to regulate them, if required, to get over them, ultimately to get over them. Which is coming next. How is that progress made? Bhagavan talks about it in the next verse.
Indriyasyendriyasyarthe
Indriyasyendriyasyarthe
Ragadveshau vyavastitau
Ragadvesha vyavastitau
Tayornavashamagachet
Tayornavashamagachet
Tau hyasya paripantinau
Tauhyasya paripantinau
Indriyasyendriyasyarthe Ragadveshau vyavastitau Tayornavashamagachet Tau hyasya paripantinau.
Indriyasyendriyasya. Please note the repetition. Indriya, Indriya. In each and every Indriya. That's what it means. In each and every single cell. Jnanendriyas and Karmendriyas. In each of these, Arthe. Arthe is objects of the senses. Remember we talked earlier about it. The object of my taste is the coffee. The object of my taste is the gulab jamun. The object of my sight is a beautiful flower. So the object is the arthi. And the indriyas are the each and every indriya. The jnanendriya and the karmendriya. So what are the jnanendriya and karmendriya? The 5 faculties of perception, the jnanendriyas. They are the Srotra Tattva. Tattva is element. Srotra is hearing. And that is through the ears. The Tvak Tattva, touching elements. That is through the skin. The Chakshu Tattva, seeing. That is through the eyes, the seeing element. Rasana Tattva, the tasting elements through the tongue. And the Gandha Tattva, the smelling elements, which is through the nose. The 5 sense organs. And the 5 faculties of action or karmendriyas, they are the Vak Tattva, Vak is speech element, which is through the voice. The Pani Tattva, grasping element through the hands. The Pada Tattva, walking element through the legs. The Payu Tattva, excretory elements through the excretory system. And the Upastha Tattva, the procreation elements through the reproductive system. So the impulses, these are the organs of action. The sense organs are organs of perception and organs of action. With the sense, through the sense organs, we receive what the surrounding world has to give to us. And through the organs of action, we propagate what we have to give to the surrounding. The impulses, they come through the sense organs, and the actions go out through the motor organs. And Bhagavan says, Raga Dvesha Vyavasthitau. The Raga and the Dvesha, the likes and the dislikes, the inclinations and the disinclinations, they are Vyavasthitau, set, established, seated. In what? In every single of these elements. It is there inherent in these elements. What influences our behavior, what influences our response is the response to these likes and dislikes. What we like is good. What we do not like is not good. And Bhagavan says, Na aggachate, do not come under vasham, their sway. Of what? Tayor. Tayor means these two, Raga and Dvesha. Tayor vasham na agachate. Do not be overpowered by them. Watch your tendencies carefully and rise above these tendencies. Give the tendencies a jolt. Do not get jolted by them. And why? Because Bhagavan continues to say, Tau hyasya paripanthinau. These two surely, hyasya is surely are, certainly are enemies. Paripanthinau. Paripanthin is the term for highway robbers. What do highway robbers do? When you are going through, in fact, there are signs, warning signs in some highways. Like they say, don't speed is a warning sign. There are warning signs in some areas on highways which says, robbery is common here, be careful. Do not stop, robbers are there, and so on. Especially in the olden days. Now highway robbery has come down, thankfully. Highway robbery has come down, but our Raga Dvesha subduing has not come down much. So these highway robbers, they stop us, they rob, they take away all our possessions, and they actually throw you away and go about their business. Similarly, Raga Dvesha are highway robbers in the path. Which path? The spiritual path. Remember that entire spiritual path we went through, beginning from Karma Yoga? In that spiritual path, in that highway, Raga Dvesha are the highway robbers. We have to watch, we have to beware. God is not saying that we cannot have Raga Dvesha or we should not have Raga Dvesha. He in fact says that they are there. They are inherent in all the elements. They are inherent in every single cell. He is just saying, do not come under their sway. Do not get overburdened by them. Do not allow them to hold the reins of your mind and intellect first and then your soul later. We have to hold the reins. Swami Chinmayananda has said, a quiet, alert, vigilant mind itself is sadhana. This is probably among the most important lessons of the Bhagavad Gita. How we are to recognize our inclinations and disinclinations. And since we are in the path of spiritual growth, recognize which is an hindrance, which is an obstacle, and which is a conducive like or dislike to this path. Among the most important teachings in the Bhagavad Gita by Bhagavan. So my daughter used to sing this lovely, lovely little uplifting song, when she was really small. And it used to go something like this. Every single cell in my body is good. Every single cell in my mind is happy. And then it went on and on and on. And, and my daughter and her friends, these girls would dance together in gay abandon. I mean, just the fact that they are saying this, every single cell in my body is good, every single cell in my, they just in gay abandon. And all the adults who were there looking at them, guess what happened? Like an infectious disease. Everybody was laughing, feeling happy, every single cell feeling good, every single cell feeling happy. So every element, every cell in our body has the raga and dvesha. It is up to us to recognize them, control them, rise above them, not get under their sway. Actually, there is René Descartes. René Descartes was a French philosopher. He is actually known as the father of modern philosophy. He was also a mathematician and a scientist. He lived in the 16th century. He said that humans are made of two distinct components. One is the body and the other is the mind. And he saw the body as a very complex, extremely complex biological machine. To explain the mind, which is harder, body is very easy to explain. Extremely complex biological machine. It has these parts. These parts make these functions. Jnanendriya, karmendriya, sense organs of action, so on and so forth, right? The mind is very difficult. So to explain the mind, he tried to imagine having no body, like floating around like a spirit, like a ghost. That was very easy for him to do. Then he tried to imagine that he had no mind. And how much ever he imagined, he could not manage it. He just could not imagine that he had no mind. It just didn't happen. Then he summed this experience of his, where he could imagine being without a body, but he could not imagine being without a mind. He summed it up in a beautiful, neat phrase. I think, therefore I am. So Bhagavan now gives the method by which one can curb these tendencies. One can curb the likes and dislikes, the inclinations and the disinclinations. We'll go to the next verse.
Shreyan swadharmo vigunaha.
Shreyan swadharmo vigunaha.
Paradharmat swanishtitat.
Paradharmat swanushtitat.
Swadharme nidanam shreyaha.
Swadharme nidhanam shreyaha.
Paradharmo bhayavaha.
Paradharmo bhayavaha.
Shreyan swadharmo vigunaha. Paradharmat swanushtitat. Swadharme nidanam shreyaha. Paradharmo bhayavaha.
Shreyan, better. What is good? Shreyaha. Is one's own duty, swadharma. Even if one's own duty is devoid of merit or not executed to perfection, which is viguna. Even then it is more better. It is shreya. Than what? Better than what? Better than duty of another, paradharma. Even if that paradharma, duty of another, is well done, well executed, swanushtita. Your own duty, vigunaha, not performed to perfection, devoid of merit, is better, is more shreya than someone else's duty, even if it is extremely well executed. Swanushtita. And he continues to say that death, nidhanam, during the performance of one's duty, swadharma, is better, shreya, than performance of paradharma, another's duty. So remember, the context here is Arjuna wanted to run away and become a saint. His duty is to, as a king, fight. Senayor ubayor madhye, he says, my bow is slipping out of my hand, my hands are trembling, I have sweat all over, my skin is burning. Bhagavan, let's get out of here. That's the context. So you want to go do somebody else's duty. Dying here, Arjuna, is better. Which we see all around in our life. We see people trying to focus on who. It happens in my organization all the time. The development guy will say what the business guy should do better. The business guy will say what the development guy should do better. Let's focus on our work. There is a tendency to focus on others' work. The wife will say the husband is not doing the office job better, whether she knows about it or not. The husband will say the wife's cooking is not good, whether the person knows cooking or not. It's happened all around us. We are the Arjunas, where we try to focus on other people's duty. We would like to do that, give up our own duty. Bhagavan says, if you do that, it would only herald fear. Bhayavaha. So a professional farmer, even if there is no rains, there is famine for 6 years, 8 years, 5 years, does not lose hope, because he knows, he has seen these cycles. Generations of farmers, his forefathers have seen these cycles. He keeps, at his work. But imagine there was a weaver who takes to farming. The first drought, the first year without rain, forget about drought, the first year where there is no good rain, this person wants to give up and run away. Similarly, a true devotee does not deviate from her path of devotion for any reason whatsoever. So with all of this, Arjuna has a question in mind. One of the things in Bhagavad Gita is the beautiful questions Arjuna asks. He is very persistent, very careful student, a very good listener, and extremely persistent in asking Bhagavan, challenging him, raising his doubt, does not shy away. So Arjuna asks a question. Now, he says there are so many possibilities, O Varshneya. There are so many possibilities because of which one can go astray. One can allow this raga and dvesha to dominate. One can come under the sway, their sway. But tell me that one thing, for people like us, if we have to do karma yoga, for us to master everything is going to be next to impossible. What is that root cause? Even in today's modern world, we do root cause analysis. What is that root cause? What is that one root thing? Once I find out what that root cause is and I fix it, everything else will get conquered. That is Arjuna's question. Next verse. Arjuna Vacha.
Arjuna Uvacha.
Arjuna Vacha.
Atakena prayuktoyam.
Atakena prayuktoyam.
Papam charati purushaha.
Papam charati purushaha.
Anichannapi varshneya.
Anichannapi varshneya.
Baladiva niyojitaha.
Baladiva niyojitaha.
Arjuna Uvacha. Atakena prayuktoyam. Papam charati purushaha. Anichannapi varshneya. Baladiva niyojitaha.
So Arjuna says Atha. Atha here implies, got it Bhagavan, I got it. Okay, I've understood what you're trying to say, O Varshneya. Varshneya is one that is born of the Vrishni clan. So Arjuna is implying to, like Bhagavan calls him Kaunteya, Arjuna is calling him Varshneya. This is your descendants. He says, I got it. I've understood what you're trying to say. But what is that one thing, Kena, that impels, that forces, prayukto. Prayukto is something that forces you. Forces who? Humans, Purusha. Charati papam. Charati is to perform papam, this sin. Sin again and again, remember, is what causes mental disturbance. In this case, Arjuna is referring to the fever, jwara. That jwara, that papa. Why is it that we keep going there? Even though, api is even though, not wishing to. Anichan. Anichan is, I don't wish to do this. I don't wish to follow that path. Even though I don't wish to do that, I am constrained, niyojitaha, to go on that path. As if by force, baladiva, as if by force. There is something, there's some magnetic force that pulls me there. Even Duryodhana, he confided to his friend Karna. He said, I know and I understand what dharma is. I've been taught by the same Dronacharya who taught Yudhishthira. But my mind is not going there. I know, I understand what adharma is, but it seems as if there is some power, that is some unseen force that is making me commit adharma. So a lot of times in our life, we know that we are doing something wrong, but we still commit some power that stems from what? Prakriti, our nature. And how do we come over and not get under the sway? By recognizing what our tendencies are, by recognizing the likes and the dislikes, and controlling them and working on them, self-effort. That is how we will do it. So Bhagavan answers how we are going to do it in the next verse, which we will take up in our next satsang. Hari Om, thank you.
Asato ma sadgamaya tamaso ma jyotirgamaya mrityorma amritam gamaya. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.
Hari Om, thank you. I felt really good going through this particular satsang preparation because my son's example and my daughter's example came to mind. Raga Dvesha. Raga in this case. Okay, thoughts, questions, comments?
Hi Srini, this is Nipun.
Hi Nipun.
Thank you again for all these teachings, really helpful. So had a comment on Shlok 36. Is it can I say it's similar to, say, I don't know, like addiction? For example, say maybe I'm addicted to, I don't know, smoking, drinking, or maybe sugar. Sugar is the case. So I know it's wrong, right? But somehow I can't help it. Can we relate this to that one?
Absolutely, yes. In fact, addiction is a severe form of like or dislike.
Right.
So, yes, it is a raga dvesha. And absolutely, yes. When so it's like a magnetic pull. You know that smoking is not good, but you still, I used this example in one of the earlier satsang. Right. I used to smoke long ago. Suddenly, me and my friend, we will say, no more smoking. This is not good. We'll actually, instead of lighting up the cigarette, we'll burn all the cigarettes. 4, 5, 6, 1. And it was not easy, because it was not like we had enough money in those days. So burning a cigarette is like, you look at it and you're like, no, this is the right thing to do. I don't want it. And guess what? The next day you're going and buying more. That's some magnetic pull.
So coming to the next, I mean, so even Shlok 34, right? The Rag Dvesh one. So like I can identify my Rag and Dvesh. But so all this is the what part, right? That this is what is wrong. This is what should be fixed. The how part I find missing. Like how do I mean, body, it's still a little simpler, right? Okay, maybe I want to be fit, I can run. Right, I want to build muscles, I can do these exercises. There's a prescription. For mind, although the what at least so far has been covered, I'm wondering, maybe I'm jumping to the ahead in the future. Like, are there methods, processes where I can control my mind or like exercise my mind similarly like we do for the body?
Absolutely, yes. Bhagavan, in fact, the next verse onwards, he'll start. He'll answer Arjuna's question.
Okay, great.
That's what Arjuna is asking, right? Arjuna is saying that in verse 36, like you said, that's what he's saying. I understood, but what is that one thing that makes us go through this path, and how do I control that? So yes, it will come. By the way, he has already given one answer to the question how, which is Ishvara Arpana Buddhi, Prasada Buddhi.
Right.
You know, that's also a how. Whatever we do, even if we are doing something, okay, let's say I know I'm doing something wrong. I know the cigarette is not good. I'm smoking. I know that. Let me say, Bhagwan, let me take God's name at that moment and let me do it for him.
Okay.
It's like that Sri Ramakrishna example, no? He said, oh, Shrishi, my mind is not going towards God. He says, what do you love? He says, my pet dog. And he says, oh, what a divine face. So you look at the cigarette and say, you know, how divine you are. I'm pretty sure the next time you keep saying how divine you are and it works, you know, that is self-effort, right? And when you keep saying that, it keeps reinforcing. And it doesn't have to be how divine. It could be my father doesn't like me to smoke. My wife doesn't like me to smoke. You keep saying it. At the time, see, often what we do is at that moment when we light a cigarette, we do not worry about the wife. We do not worry about the father. We do not worry about God. But at that moment, if we link the two, come what may, it may take longer. It may take, for some people, it will take a lesser time. For some people, it will take longer. But the day will come when you will say you're not able to light that cigarette. That day will come. So he says, you know, devote it to the higher ideal. That's what Bhagavan says. So that's one solution.
Thanks. Thank you.
Devoting even our wrongdoings to God help us get over those wrongdoings. So for example, if the goal is to be fitter, and I know that to be fitter, I have to get up early in the morning and run, but I'm used to sleeping late. So I'll say, you know, God, the sleeping late is for you. But there's an inherent contradiction. And my conscience knows that there is an inherent contradiction. So if I do that 2 times, 3 times, 4th time, I'll get up and go.
Thank you.
Hi, Srini.
Hello, Aditi.
Hi. Yeah, some very good examples about your son and daughter. Yes, I also kind of remembered a few incidents from my son's growing up years. Anyways, the question was on this likes and dislikes. So what I feel is in today's world, when people, they have so much of, I'm talking about some people, they have so much consciousness about themselves. Acceptance is accepting that they are wrong, or accepting that, you know what, this part of their nature is not helping them, is a very big issue. So how do you kind of address that?
So at the end of the day, each to himself or herself, right? One can try, one can help. So coming back, you know, a lot of these things come back to one same core. You know, if I have a problem in accepting a problem with myself, at the minimum, can I try to do that, whatever that wrong thing is, as a devotion to Bhagavan, as a devotion to the higher ideal? So if my higher ideal is, so when I'm saying, I keep repeating this, God is the ultimate and all of us are believers. But even for the people who are not believers, you know, even they can have a higher ideal. If I have to lose weight, the losing weight is the higher ideal. So if I say that I am devoting my sleeping to the losing weight, contradiction. So if I can do that, if at the minimum I can devote whatever it is to the higher ideal, whatever the wrong is that I know to the higher ideal, then it should work like a medicine. It should work. The treatment should come about very shortly. Even that, if I'm not able to do, honestly, Aditi, then I'm a Vimudhatma, deluded person. So deluded person, we'll have to let them be in their journey. You know, delusion is a disease. You know, a deluded person, the worst thing about delusion is the belief that I'm not deluded. That's the biggest delusion about delusion. Even scientifically, medically deluded people, proven deluded people, they'll never admit that they are deluded. So the worst problem about delusion is I'm not deluded. So you got to let them go through that journey. It could take the entire life. If it does, it does.
So how I sum it up is that the first thing that one should do is acceptance. And the second is probably detachment, right?
Recognition, recognizing the likes and dislike, recognizing the inclinations and disinclination, then linking it to what your goal is. If there is a like or dislike that is not aligned to the spiritual path, then it should be removed. If there is a like or dislike that is not aligned to my goal of losing weight, it should be removed, like sleeping, oversleeping. It should be removed. So recognizing it, acting on it, and then of course the detachment part is there too. We saw it earlier. But in this case of likes and dislikes, for the person who is getting into Karma Yoga, recognize your Raga Dvesha and put self-effort to not to come under their sway, not get washed over by them, and then to go over them after you have come to that neutral level where they are not ruling you, then you rule them. The Raga Dvesha.
Quite challenging.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. But it does happen. It is extremely challenging, but it does take place.
Thank you.
So this might not be appropriate, I don't know, but between Duryodhan and Arjun, Arjun is asking so many questions to even do his duty, which he's been clearly told to do. But I'm talking about Arjun. So, but Duryodhan at the same time, without asking any questions, is dedicatedly doing what he wants to do. And that way he is doing things for his higher ideal. So why is he, I mean, he's kind of maybe more, better than Arjun, and how do we place them?
So, really wonderful question. So, yes, that's true. There seems to be much less confusion in the mind of Duryodhana. Like I said, there is an instance in the Mahabharata where he confides to his friend Karna, But in general, he is very clear. This is what is to be done and I'm going about doing it. And yes, it happens to be wrong. Whereas Arjuna has got confused. He's got deluded. He's under misery. But what's that one single difference? We have talked about that concept earlier also. What distinguishes is dharma and adharma. Doing adharmic activities 100% sure will not lead to liberation. If you go back and look at the Duryodhana's actions, almost everything is, and he says that. He says, I know it is adharma, still I do it. That's what even in this Bhagavan talks about, right? There is some force that pulling me to do what I know is wrong. Something. And wrong could be a mistake and a wrong could be adharma. Adharma is probably the worst mistake. Adharma is, where you harm another human being, where you harm other fellow creatures. That is adharmic.
So maybe
that is the difference between Arjuna and Duryodhana. Arjuna is confused, but he's on the right dharmic path.
So I feel the entire exercise of Duryodhan being a follower of dharma is to give us all the jnana of dharma.
That is right. The world has been, the creator has created this world with the extremities. So Bhagavan doesn't say Raga Dvesha should not be there. Adharma dharma is the extreme limit of Raga Dvesha. So Bhagavan doesn't say Raga Dvesha should not be there. He just says don't come under their sway. Raga and Dvesha, don't come under their sway. So yes, they are there. It's a question of what we adopt.
Okay, so 2 points. One is we were talking about the duty, right? So you took an example of we were turning into a farmer, and if he's not able to kind of understand the weather conditions and everything, he may start complaining, right? So are we saying that, you know, somebody who is struggling with a profession cannot shift into another one because that is more kind of lucrative, or that is his duty because he has to change the profession because he has to take care of his family also? Because we are seeing many cases these days, right? In our community itself, if I see, there is an example of one person who is like ironing the clothes, right? He used to make up to 3K in a day from all of our houses. Now he cannot make it because nobody is going to office. This person who's forced to, you know, change what he was doing because of certain situation, and he has to do his duty for his family.
What you're saying is correct. So the example of farmer and weaver, it's nothing but an example. But the example relates to duty. If my duty is farming and I leave that duty to do weaving, or if my duty is weaving and I leave that to do farming, that is where the question comes. But you are talking about profession. So
Right.
today, in today's changed world, yes, I think the duty is param dharma, the param duty, the prime duty, the premier duty for him is to look after his family and look after himself. So if that demands that he needs to do something else, he needs to do something else. That is correct. But yeah, the question is doing something else which is not your duty. That is what Bhagwan is cautioning against.
Right.
When you can do your duty.
Right. 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 And the other point on, you know, you were saying, like, you know, in organizations also, like, you know, people do comment on other, you know, person's work sort of. So is it not right, or are we saying that, you know, you have to do your job first and then, you know, talk about others? Or you know, from sometimes what happens is the other person will have a bigger picture or a different perspective, and, you know, comment on the other person's work sort of, right?
Correct.
I'm just trying to see where we will draw that line, right? One is about complaining the other person, the other is about, you know, guiding the other person.
True. So again, the example that I gave was more towards, I wanted to link two things. One, the inherent tendency, okay, the inclination, and the duty. So there is tendency which we see all around where a person is looking into another person's area. For example, the business guy is looking into the development guy. When the business, there are so many things to be done. Suppose my domain is perfect. Suppose everything has been done. And then I'm helping others. Absolutely welcome. Even if my domain is not perfect, I'm working on it. But this is towards helping. Absolutely welcome. But if my domain has so many things to be done, and I am all the time picking on somebody else's area, then that is quote unquote paradharma.
Right.
I have a question. It's on the same topic as Anupama mentioned, duty. I feel duty, each one can have his or her own perspective when it comes to duty. I have quoted these examples in the previous sessions, and I'll quote them again. Take the instance of Mahatma Buddha. So he was Prince Siddhartha, and he was married, he had a wife, he had a kid. He left them and he went into the forest and he started meditating, and of course we know what happened next. So wasn't it his duty to take care of his wife and his kid and the kingdom at that point in time? So do we say that he did not really do any justice to that? And same is the case with Ashoka. So he was a king. It was his duty to, fight wars and add more kingdoms to his thing, but he didn't do that. After the war of Kalinga, he just left everything, and even he followed the same path. So what do we have to say about them?
Why Ashoka and Siddhartha and Gautama Buddha? Bill Gates left school and became Bill Gates. Mark Zuckerberg left his duty as a student and became Mark Zuckerberg. Okay, even today. So if you are leaving your duty, become one of them, no? Become Buddha, become Zuckerberg, become somebody, then yes, it's right. But if I'm saying that I'm going to not do this and don't do anything else, then it's a huge problem. So time will prove. See, and time, how will time prove? Because the outcome is a chain of events that are happening today. If there is someone who is leaving a primary duty, if there is a mother who has left her primary duty of rearing the kids, if a lion has left the cubs and gone away, or if a mother has left the baby in front of a temple door and gone away, right? Obviously, the mother has not performed the duty. But the context of why that situation has happened, what is the reason that situation has happened, and what is the outcome over a period of time will show whether it was a dharmic process or an adharmic process or way of life. Some of it you will know while going through, but all of it, everyone will know at the end of it. So that is why it is important to recognize the inner tendency and the raga and dvesha. It's very, very important, because if we don't recognize it today, the time will come when the world will recognize it. So yeah, if a person is choosing to go out of the common path, so if I have a role that I have committed to, okay, there is a role that I have taken up and I have committed to, then my duty is towards fulfilling that role. That's what Bhagavan is telling Arjuna. Yudhasva Arjuna. Stand up and fight. Because right now you have committed, you are deep into it. Now is not the time to get out and move. It's apparent.
Okay.
So all the life is prepared for a phase, and in that phase you get out. That's not performing, that's adharmic. And
Right.
if you do, if people like Gautama Buddha did something that seemed adharmic for a period of time, at the end of the day, the context of everything, it fell into place, because apparently his bigger duty, the bigger calling was, preaching the right path to the world. So not only his own family, his wife and child gained from it, entire world gained from it.
Right.
So everyone has to be very sure what they are doing. And to be very sure, you have to know yourself very well. To know yourself very well, you have to understand and recognize your inclination and disinclination very well. When you know that, then yes, the chances of success are pretty much guaranteed. But if I'm going to be a Bill Gates pretender, then that's not good, no?
What do you mean by a Bill Gates pretender?
Pretender, or a Gautama Buddha pretender, So Arjuna wanted to become a Gautama Buddha pretender, right? Let me leave the battlefield and let me go and become the preacher to the world of spirituality. Let me do, devotion, absorption into the spiritual context and become a saint. Bhagavan said, no, you will not even be able to do it, because your calling is to fight. So you can't pretend to be. That's the even here. That's what Bhagavan is talking about. Doing your swadharma and failing in it, doing your swadharma and dying in it. I use the word pretending because there are a lot of people that I come across in my life. They, even before they have become 1/1,000,000th of a successful entrepreneur, they think they are going to be the next Mark Zuckerberg. That itself is a first step towards failure. Because you don't do something to become Mark Zuckerberg. You do something because you love what you are doing.
Right. Thank you.
So the perspective, the individual perspective, it's very important to be clear about that individual perspective. And if there is confusion, it is better to clarify like Arjuna did, rather than be deluded like Duryodhana did.
I was saying, to answer Aditi's question, can we compare it with a soldier whose duty is also to look after his family, but also to look after his country, and he chose a higher duty for himself, and he leaves his family and he stays to protect the country at the border. So maybe that is his higher calling, higher duty, and that's why he chose one.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say the soldier leaves his lower duty to perform higher duty. I would rather say that the family is doing the duty by sending him away happily to perform his duty of husband. Okay, so the soldier's duty is the soldier's duty, and the family is actually supporting him, and family is doing their duty by supporting him to do the soldier's duty.
But if you ask the family, they will say that it's my, if you ask the wife of a soldier or a child of a soldier, he would say that my father's duty is towards me also to look after me, or the wife would say, my husband's duty is to look after me also. So I'm saying from their perspective.
No, that's what I said. From their perspective, they are doing their duty. So I have not met. I have myself served as a soldier. I am yet to meet a family member who say that, why should this person go? Why should my father, my husband go? I am personally yet to meet. In fact, in that situation, people normally understand. In fact, I've met martyrs' families, martyrs' spouses who have gracefully accepted that this is the reality. This is what it is. This is why, my husband, got martyred for the higher cause, for the nation. So that is their duty. Yeah, it is their duty towards their nation too, towards their husband too. So in that situation, I would rather, that's why I said I'll flip it over, It is the duty of the spouse to, what is the duty of the spouse? The individual, the soldier is doing his duty anyway. If the spouse is complaining, it's the spouse is not doing her duty.
Yeah.
Or his duty. By the way, today there are women who are fighting out there in the war front. So if the woman has a husband who is a chief executive in a private firm, and is saying, why are you going into the war? Then he is not doing his duty.
Thank you, Srini.
I have one comment to what Aditi said. This Arjun's dharma, right? See, Arjun had time all his life to avoid the war, right? These people who are his relative, they were all the time his relative. What is new now? He is coming. Now he is in the field. It is his dharma to fight. So he cannot go away now. He had chances to go away and avoid this war long time. And when there was no war, he was actually asking for the war. And now he is in the battlefield. So there is no question of what is Arjun's dharma at this stage. This is what my understanding. Shrini?
Yeah, that's correct.
Really, I just wanted to add one point.
Yeah, hi Shubha.
Hi Ma. I was just thinking, at that point, Gautam Buddha, who was called Siddhartha then, he was so disillusioned himself with what was happening around his life that he needed to get away to get clarity. That's how I perceive it. So he was so sad at his heart, he couldn't concentrate on anything. So he was in the same position as Arjuna is, totally confused and not understanding why these things are happening. Because he was so protected. Exposure to the world was such a contrast. He just could not take it. And he couldn't do any of the duties that he was supposed to be doing, or understand what is his role or how he has to go about it.
True, absolutely. That's a very good point, because Gautama Buddha's story is that when he was Siddhartha, he was cocooned inside the palace, and by chance when he happened to go out and he saw the miseries, he never even knew that this is the kind of real world which I have been cocooned away from. And that is what instigated and that is what inspired him to go out and pursue the path, and the questions that came which he had to seek answer to, which he did, and then he enlightened the world. First he got the answers and then he enlightened the world. But yes, the trigger was the fact that he just couldn't swallow the reality, and he just couldn't accept the fact that his own family had hidden him away from that reality. the other thing Bhagavan is trying to do here is he's trying to show the entire path. So sometimes what happens is something in a context appears in a certain way, but the same thing in the holistic picture appears very differently. So if we are sure about the holistic picture, the context will not bother us. And it may bother others, and it will not bother us even if the others are being bothered. But if we are not sure about the holistic picture and, being unsure of the holistic picture, acting in a specific way, then obviously one context after the other goes wrong, the holistic picture will turn out to be a wrong picture. So as long as we are on the right ladder, we are climbing the ladder in the right manner, we are holding firm on the higher step and then renouncing the lower step, then we are doing it the right way. And that is what Bhagavan is trying us to, not trying, is definitely showing, it's up to us to receive, that how do we ensure that this is true for our lives too, where we don't end up living 50, 60, 90 years and then look back and say, hey, I should have done it differently. That is the ultimate, one of the gains of, a spiritual path.
Arjun had this last, standing in the middle of the field and war field, and he's having delusions and he's getting confused. I think it is all right to have those confusions, because it's better to be clear what you're going to do, because this was like about killing people and fighting a war, which was a huge destructive thing which was going to happen. Better to have clarity than getting into it. And why not? Because one can always feel that whatever I've committed to, maybe it's not right. So I think it's fine for him to stand there and be clear about it. Or if Krishna was not able to convince him, he would have walked out of it also.
Sure. Yeah, everything is fine in life. As long as we are on the path of dharma, number one, and number two, we are doing our fundamental duties. As long as these two things are followed, then yes, Bhagavan says that everything is fine. In Arjuna's context, it appears fine because he sought clarity. Imagine if he had not sought clarity and if he had actually gone away. Krishna, you do whatever you want, you can fight the battle, I am running away. Then the entire thing would have turned out to be wrong. He would have become the villain. Living with self-doubt is not okay. It's paramount that you address it, clear it, get over it, and move on in life in the right direction.
But one has a right to seek clarity and say, if I'm committed, doesn't mean I'm committed. I can always turn back and introspect and seek guidance and then decide against it.
Yeah, it just depends. If you do that for 15 years of your life, then there's a problem. But if you, Guru Upasadhana is that, where if you are not able to solve, that is where Arjuna, Guru Upasadhana, where you seek and from a reliable source. If you get drowned in the lack of clarity, then a lifetime passes.
I think Shraddha is the answer, right? I mean, see, you can keep asking questions. If you have no Shraddha, there is no leap of faith, right? You will have permanent questions. You can always ask one more question. So I think here the question is also that of leap of faith, yeah, and not purely of the logic alone. Arjun is accepting that there are places where leap of faith is required, and there are places where clarification, immediate clarification is needed.
For the Tattvavita, it works. For who is not yet ready for that knowledge, Shraddhavanto Nasuyanto. So that is what you just talked about, the leap of faith. And a leap of faith meaning ensured leap of faith. That's why Bhagavan combines the two terms. He says Shraddha and Nasuyanta, which is don't have doubt, don't question, don't criticize. Both of them go together. That is why the term leap of faith. Any other thoughts? Okay, if nothing else, then Hari Om. We'll meet on next Saturday.